pure experiences.
Welcome to the Pure Experiences Podcasts. The planes of existence are experiences of various vibratory states of the all. Entities find themselves in one or the other vibratory plane, depending on their level of evolution. Higher the rate of vibration, higher is the level of evolution. There is a huge continuous spectrum of vibrations, which can be divided into arbitrary planes or dimensions for the purpose of study.
The planes of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. The Kybalion. The great second Hermetic principle embodies the truth that there is a harmony, agreement, and correspondence between the several planes of manifestation, life and being. This truth is a truth because all that is included in the universe emanates from the same source, and the same laws, principles, and characteristics apply to each unit or combination of units of activity, as each manifests its own phenomena upon its own plane. For the purpose of convenience of thought, the Hermetic philosophy considers that universe may be divided into three great classes of phenomena, known as the three great planes, namely, the number one, the great physical plane. Number two, the great mental plane. Number three, the great spiritual plane. These divisions are more or less artificial and arbitrary. For the truth is that all of the three divisions are but ascending degrees of the great scale of life, the lowest point of which is undifferentiated matter, and the highest point that of spirit. And moreover, the different planes shade into each other so that no hard and fast division may be made between the higher phenomena of the physical and lower of the mental, or between the higher of the mental and lower of the physical. In short, the three great planes may be regarded as three great groups of degrees of life manifestation. While the purpose of this little book do not allow us to enter into an extended discussion of or explanation of the subject of these different planes, still we think it well to give a general description of the same at this point. At the beginning, we may as well consider the question so often asked by the neophyte who desires to be informed regarding the meaning of the word plane, which term has been very freely used and very poorly explained in many recent works upon the subject of occultism. The question is generally about as follows: is a plane a place having dimensions, or is it merely a condition or state? We answer no, and not a place, not ordinary dimension of space, and yet more than a state or condition. It may be considered as a state or a condition, and yet the state or condition is a degree of dimension in a scale subject to measurement. Somewhat paradoxical, is it not? But let us examine the matter. A dimension, is a measure in a straight line, relating to the measure, etc. And the ordinary dimensions of space are length, breadth, and height. Perhaps length, breadth, height, thickness, or circumference. But there is another dimension of created things or measure in a straight line, known to occultists and to scientists as well, although the latter have not as yet applied the term dimension to it. And this new dimension, which by the way is the much speculated about fourth dimension, is the standard used in determining the degrees or planes. This fourth dimension may be called the dimension of vibration. It is a fact well known to modern science as well as to the Hermetists, who have embodied the truth in their third Hermetic principle that everything is in motion, everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. From the highest manifestation to the lowest, everything and all things vibrate, not only Do they vibrate at different rates of motion, but as in different directions and in different manner? The degrees of the rate of vibrations constitute the degrees of measurement on the scale of vibrations. In other words, and the degrees of the fourth dimension. And these degrees form what occultists call planes. The higher the degree of rate of vibration, the higher the plane, and the higher the manifestation of life occupying that plane. So that while a plane is not a place, nor yet a state or condition, yet it possesses qualities common to both. We shall have more to say regarding the subject of the scale of vibrations in our next lessons, in which we shall consider the hermetic principle of vibration. So I read a lot of it, 1 page and more, because it was going into the fundamentals of the planes. Now, plane is a very funny word, because as soon as I say plane, people think like a flat surface, the plane of the mathematics, one flat two-dimensional surface like your floor. So when somebody says there are 3 great planes, one above the other, what are you going to imagine? There is one which is the earth, it is flat plane, and there must be one something beyond earth, above in the sky. That is what the language is telling you. And then there must be one more above it which nobody knows. And some people go on and say there are more below the earth, below ground. And this is a big disaster, isn't it? Because there is no such thing. The plane is only a word. And they could have used a very sophisticated, technical sounding word, but they used, unfortunately, whoever translated those Egyptian writings, they used the words planes. Now, it is okay because they wanted to keep it encrypted. They did not want everybody to understand what these things mean. But now this book is giving you a hint. Do not please expect the planes as places or as things that you can see sitting here by telescopes or by digging into the ground. It is not possible. You see, the whole physical universe is one plane. Everything in it is only one plane. It is an experience of the physical universe. And this is called a plane for some reason. Now, whatever that reason is, let's forget about it. If you want the Indian word for plane, it is called lok, L-O-K. Lok, from which the English word location comes. Lok. It actually means many things in Sanskrit, because Sanskrit is also very ancient and people have assigned so many things to the same word. Every 200, 300, 500 years later, the same word got reused into different meanings. And there is a very interesting word which is called the Viman. And you know what is Viman. And Vimantal means, and the airport. Viman means airplane. This is the current meaning of the word Viman. This is Sanskrit meaning. Probably 500-600 years ago, the Viman meant the top part of a temple. The pyramidal part of a South Indian temple. That was called the Viman. Even before that, the Viman was a flying machine. And who knows what was it even before that? We don't know, because this is India, you see. It keeps things are interpreted and reinterpreted many ways. But this is not typical of India. It is everywhere. So the planes have been called and understood and misunderstood by many people in many ways. So we have the earth plane, then we have the ethereal plane, then we have the astral plane, then we have the mental plane, and so on. This is theosophical division. So they have even more, made it even more complicated. This book is telling you only 3 planes, and Annie Besant and Blavatsky, they made many planes out of these. So it is possible to divide it, isn't it? It is possible to divide the great planes into minor planes, but it causes even more problems. Because without experience, it is not possible to know what a plane is. Even if it is kind of described in a nice language, in a good language, like this book is trying to do. It is saying it is a state or a condition, but not really a state or a condition. It's not a place, and it's not a dimension, but it is a measure in a straight line. And then that becomes confusing. So if you don't understand what it is saying, just understand that planes point to different degrees of vibrations. And since there is a spectrum of vibrations, what is vibrating? Well, the whole existence is vibration, actually. There is nothingness is vibrating. So the mind does not go there, what is vibrating, but it knows that there are vibrations. That is for sure, 100%. What is vibrating? That nobody knows, actually. So Advait will say that it is the Brahmanad that is happening, which is equal to Atman, which is equal to the I. So it is all my play. It will say like this, but you cannot see it, obviously. You will never be able to see what is vibrating. So it is unknowable, and therefore the all is also unknowable because it is a vibration of some kind. What is vibrating, you don't know. But there are vibrations. And since that is a spectrum of vibration, there is a continuous frequency of vibration, if you want to use that word, you see. The frequency means the rate at which it vibrates. The number of times it vibrates per second is the frequency, hertz. So we don't know what is vibrating. We don't know how to find out the frequency, but we can experience. We can experience the planes, and that is the whole point. So whatever we experience, we can plot it along a frequency of vibration. So we put the current experience, the experience of the material world, at the bottommost because it is slowest vibrating, slowly changing. And then as our experience grows, we can put the other experiences, the non-physical experiences, at a higher frequency. And then more experiences arrive if you search more, and you can put them at even more higher frequencies. And if you plot it like vertically, frequency going up in a y-axis vertically, you can say that I am now at a higher frequency. And if you draw a line there, it becomes a plane. So it is all kind of very conceptual. You will never see a plane thing anywhere in your experience. If you want to explore the planes, you will never see a place. What you will see is different kinds of experiences, and then you need to use your intelligence to divide them into various frequencies. You will know for sure. If you are into occult practices, especially the astral projection practice, you will surely know at what frequency you are experiencing right now. If you project, it is clear as a day, actually, the frequency thing. If you have never done this, forget about it. It is like showing mirror to a blind person. Will never know. Let us assume that you know a little bit about the frequency. Let us assume in your experience you know a little bit, but I think there will be some examples which will correspond to your experiences. But for now, you can say that different planes are different kinds of experiences only. You see, and there is a saying that when you die, you go to a different dimension. Dimension, synonym for the plane, lok only. That gives you a lot of stuff to imagine, isn't it? It will be like this. There will be big palaces. It will be in the air. Why? In the clouds. Why? Because, you see, everybody says that it is higher dimension. Higher means, in my current experience, higher means above the clouds only. So the mind imagines that which it knows. But there is nothing like this. Nothing like this. So without experience, people interpret these things in a very bad way, depending on their ignorance, and they land up into la la land of their own creation, delusion. So that is what I wanted to say here, that if you do not have an experience of any kind of higher vibration or lower vibration, just do not assume anything. Otherwise, instead of knowledge, you will get ignorance. This is the problem with all these secret teachings, you see. And that's why they are not told without being practiced. Without experience, you cannot know. You cannot know. Okay, Parveen is asking how can we experience high vibrational frequency, if there is any practice to do that. Yes, there are practices, and there are yogic practices, there are occult practices. Basically, you need to withdraw your senses from the physical. This is the essence of any practice. Why do you have material experience right now? Why do you have a physical kind of experience right now? Because the consciousness is focused on senses. What senses? The physical senses, the five senses of the body. In our waking hours, which is the Jagriti state of the mind, the five senses are active, and it is beyond our control. Have you seen? You get up when the body wants you to get up. You go to sleep when the body wants you to sleep. There is hardly any control over the functioning of the states of the mind. So through practice, you can try to achieve the state of the mind which the mind naturally goes in with consciousness while being aware of the state of the mind. So mind will naturally withdraw from the senses when you sleep, but you can induce it. You can do it artificially. You cannot say it is artificial, but you can do it with practice and withdraw your senses. Like there is a saying in the Sanskrit that you withdraw just like a tortoise withdraws its limbs and head into its shell. You do that. Now I'm telling you orally, and it is not going to make any sense. How to withdraw it from the senses? I mean, should I shut down everything? Close my eyes, put the plugs in my ears and all. So that helps, but that is not really withdrawing, because the mind will keep searching for some sensory perception through the closed eyes also. Will get stuck at the sensations in the body also. And when it does not receive any sensations from outside, you will find there is a great discomfort in the body. When you start practicing like this, simply by listening to somebody, now withdraw your senses and you will experience a different plane of experience, different look. Yes, it is possible, but you will encounter great difficulty. So, if you are interested, please join a guru. Please join a teacher. This is not something which I tell you and you do. It is not something like this. However, if you are not in a position to join a guru, if you cannot devote time to practice these things, which the mind is naturally doing, the mind cycles through all the planes actually in 24 hours. It does it. And there is a bigger cycle also, which is cycle of lives and deaths. It cycles through the life, human life occurs in the physical plane, then the mental plane, then spiritual plane, and then back into physical. So these are natural cycles. You can take advantage of these cycles because the mind is already capable of switching to different planes. All you need to do is take control of it. That is what a yogi is trying to do. So you can do a Google search, research, methods of lucid dreaming, methods of astral projection, and you will get some simple methods. They are so simple actually, even children do it and they get great experiences. So these days it's called out of body, but it's not out of body actually. It is just different experiences in different planes of creation, of different vibration. So it depends on your state of mind whether you will be taken to a higher frequency or to a lower frequency. And therefore, purifying practices are recommended. Like if you are full of fear or anger or greed or whatever, lower tendencies of the mind, you will end up in probably lower than earth frequencies. Who knows? And therefore, if you have a pure mind, if you do it for knowledge, for wisdom, just for exploration and experimentation, then you will be taken to the higher. Or you can ask for a guide. Or if you practice often, you will get a guide. And it is a whole science now. It is a whole practice now. So it is not something that can be done in one day. But you can start. If you are interested, you can start. I have some content about how to do such practices, and but there are no details. But I'm giving you the essence. Essence is withdraw from the physical senses while keeping your awareness on. This is the essence of any method, any yogic method, any occult method, any astral projection method, any out of body practice method, any sadhana, any kind of magic. This is the only method there is. They're all variations of the same method, you see. People have invented more, better and better things and so on. So there is a crude method also. You can take drugs, but not recommended, because who knows where the drug will take you, lower or higher, we don't know. Or there can be, parallel planes to the physical plane also. So it is very complicated, very, very complicated thing, this whole creation. But one thing is sure, it is created in layers. So I have some blog articles, I have many podcasts on the structure of planes. I call them layers of the mind. Same thing, isn't it? And the all is, I call it the universal mind. Same thing. Universal mind is the all. Mind is the only thing, all is the mental thing. So yes, drug effect will be temporary. Don't worry, your all other practices will be also temporary. You're not going to fly off in some dimension forever. You will come back here. And even if it is for a few seconds, you see, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, you get the knowledge. You get it. And you will be changed forever. The knowledge is so profound. The experience is so out of the world, literally. You will be changed forever. Actually, I'll tell you my story that my adventure into spirituality started with occult practices. And I learned very quickly that it amounts to changing the mind somehow. It amounts to changing the state of the mind. Very quickly, I landed on astral projection practices. Within 1 week, I started projecting. And wherever my life was going at that point, it took a totally different turn, 90-degree turn. So I was like any other ordinary person. I did not like all these things, spiritual things. Totally materialistic, just like everybody else. So because of this little adventure, to know, curiosity, this happened. And there's a long story then, but this was a turning point in the experience of the higher planes. So once you know this, you know that whatever they tell you is all lies. Whatever the world has projected on you is total BS. And that's why you start seeking the truth. When you start seeking the truth, you will put a question mark on everything. That is how you land up on the path of knowledge. If you don't have any experience at all, then you are not going to question anything at all. You will see 99% people are like this. Someday, please share your astral projection experience. Sure, I'll do that. Yeah, and it is again best shared by mutual experiences. Like if you all also project, then you will know exactly what I am saying. Otherwise, it will be a story for you. But I'll do that. It is kind of entertaining stuff. Okay, so we are reading the book now. I completely forgot. So this is about the planes. And if you do not understand, if you do not have a direct experience of any plane at all except the physical, just imagine the dreams. Dream state is a different kind of plane. Where do you go when you dream? Nowhere, isn't it? It's not a place. It is a state of mind. And if the dream is dark and gloomy, you can say, yes, lower vibration. You don't feel like, being there. If it is a happy dream, colorful dream, and you are flying around, flying dreams are kind of indication of a higher plane, because flying represents more freedom. So higher planes mean more freedom, more love, more color, more positivity in general. Lower means, all the negative stuff. So just imagine, if you do not have any kind of experience at all of the planes, imagine your dream state, because probably that is the only otherworldly experience that you have. You don't have any other experience, no spiritual experience. Even the greatest seeker on the path of knowledge will have exactly zero extraordinary experiences, which I find is kind of very dry. That's why I don't totally commit to the path of knowledge most of the time. And it is your own, actually, your own interest. If you want, you can do it. The only thing is, people have covered it up with words like occult or magical practices or the forbidden things. And in India, we do not have that kind of forbidden thing, but it is secret and corrupted, useless waste of time. So it has kind of a discouraging thing. So people prefer either devotion, which is, so many people like it because, so loving and such a nice people are devotees. But that is far from truth. And then the educated and intellectual people, they prefer the path of knowledge, Advaita and all. And when you ask, what is it like to be on the other planes and all, and then they say, no, there is no need to do any kind of experiment. And that is my advice also. But that is a formal advice. The informal is, do that which you love to do. Explore everything. Okay, do it at your own risk, actually. It can be risky. So, let us go forward. You will kindly remember, however, that the three great planes are not actual divisions of the phenomena of the universe, but merely arbitrary terms used by the Hermetists in order to aid in the thought and study of various degrees and forms of universal activity and life. The atom of matter, the unit of force, the mind of man, and the being of the archangels are all but degrees in one scale, and all fundamentally the same. The difference between solely a matter of degree, and the difference being solely a matter of degree and rate of vibration. All are creations of the all, and have their existence solely within the infinite mind of the all. The Hermetists subdivide each of the three great planes into 7 minor planes, and each of these later are also subdivided into 7 subplanes, all divisions being more or less arbitrary, shading into each other and adopted merely for convenience of scientific study and thought. So, as I said, people do divide the planes. Here he is saying 7 times 7 is 49, but it is all arbitrary. You see, you can divide in any way you want. So different explorers will divide it into different in a different way depending on their experience. So he's saying Hermetists are dividing it into 7 minor and then again 7. So, very interestingly, the Vedic model of the universal mind also has 7 planes. It's very interesting. One corresponding to each of the chakra in the body. So, it points to, the same origin somewhere. So, I was blaming the Theosophical Society for dividing it. Probably they have simplified the division, I think. It is not 49 times 3, it is only 7. So, okay, there are, researchers like Robert Munro and all. He divides it into 35 planes, which he calls focus. So, those who have done this kind of exploration will divide it into their own kinds. So, we have here 7 planes below the land, below the earth plane, the physical, which are called patals or tals. So this is the dharatal. There is a list of 7 planes below it. This is also called the mrityulok. And there are pitrulok and this lok, Vishnu lok, that lok, Brahma lok, and so on. 7 above. So it is something to be kept in mind that these are not fixed. These are divided according to your own kind of liking, your own experience. You can divide it anywhere if you want, because it's a continuous spectrum of vibrations. There's no quantum jump from one plane to another. So let's go forward. The great physical plane and its 7 minor planes is that division of phenomena of the universe, which includes all that relates to physics or material things, forces and manifestations. It includes all forms of that which we call matter, and all forms of that which we call energy or force. But you must remember that the Hermetic philosophy does not recognize matter as a thing in itself or having a separate existence even in the mind of the all. The teachings are that matter is but a form of energy, that is, energy at a low rate of vibrations of a certain kind. And accordingly, the Hermetists classify matter under the head of energy and give to it 3 of the 7 minor planes of the great physical plane. And these 7 minor planes are as follows: 1. The plane of matter A, 2. The plane of matter B, 3. The plane of matter C, 4. The plane of ethereal substance, 5. The plane of energy A, 6. The plane of energy B, and 7. The plane of energy C. And the plane of matter A comprises the forms of matter in its forms of solids, liquids, and gases, as generally recognized by the textbooks on physics. And the plane of matter B comprises certain higher and more subtle forms of matter, of the existence of which modern science is but not now recognizing the phenomena of radiant matter in its phases of radium, etc., belonging to the lower subdivision of the minor plane. The plane of matter C comprises forms of the most subtle and tenuous matter, the existence of which is not suspected by ordinary scientists. The plane of ethereal substance comprises that which science speaks of as the ether, a substance of extreme tenuity and elasticity, pervading all universal space and acting as a medium for the transmission of waves of energy such as light, heat, electricity, etc. This ethereal substance forms a connecting link between matter, so-called, and energy, and partakes of the nature of such. The Hermetic teachings, however, instruct that this plane has 7 subdivisions, as have all of the minor planes, and that in fact there are 7 ethers instead of but 1. Next, above the plane of ethereal substance comes the plane of energy A, which comprises the ordinary forms of energy known to science, its 7 subplanes being respectively heat, light, magnetism, electricity, and attraction, including gravitation, cohesion, chemical affinity, etc., and several other forms of energy indicated by scientific experiments but not as yet named or classified. The plane of energy B comprises 7 subplanes of higher forms of energy, not as yet discovered by science, but which have been called nature's finer forces, and which are called into operation in manifestations of certain forms of mental phenomena, and by which such phenomena becomes possible. The plane of energy C comprises 7 subplanes of energy so highly organized that it bears many of the characteristics of life, but which is not recognized by the minds of men on the ordinary plane of development, being available for use on beings of the spiritual plane alone. Such energy is unthinkable to ordinary man and may be considered almost as the divine power. The beings employing the same are as gods, compared even to the highest human types known to us. The great mental plane comprises those forms of living things known to us in ordinary life, as well as certain other forms not so well known except to the occultists. And the classification of the 7 minor mental planes, is more or less satisfactory and arbitrary unless accompanied by elaborate explanations which are foreign to the purpose of this particular work, but we may as well mention them. They are as follows: 1. The plane of mineral mind. 2. The plane of elemental mind A. 3. The plane of plant mind. 4. The plane of elemental mind B. 5. The plane of animal mind. 6. The plane of elemental mind C. And 7. The plane of human mind. The plane of mineral mind comprises the states or conditions of the units or entities or groups and combinations of the same which animate the forms known to us as minerals, chemicals, etc. These entities must not be confounded with the molecules, atoms, and corpuscles themselves, the latter being merely the material bodies or forms of these entities, just as a man's body is but his material form and not himself. These entities may be called souls in one sense, and are living beings of a low degree of development, life and mind, just a little more than the units of living energy, which comprise the higher subdivisions of the highest physical plane. The average mind does not generally attribute the position of mind, soul, or life to the mineral kingdom, but all occultists recognize the existence of the same, and modern science is rapidly moving forward to the point of view of the Hermetic. In this respect, the molecules, atoms, and corpuscles have their loves and hates, likes and dislikes, attractions and repulsions, affinities and non-affinities, etc. And some of the more daring of modern scientific minds have expressed the opinion that the desire and will, emotions and feelings of the atoms differ only in degree from those of men. We have no time or space to argue this matter here. All occultists know it to be a fact, and others are referred to some of the more recent scientific works for outside corroboration. There are the usual 7 subdivisions to this plane. So my comment is, if you are feeling lost, don't worry, it is going into the details of the planes. So these things are never taught to anybody, because if you cannot experience it, what are you going to teach? So if it is taught like this, or the description is given like this, then there is nothing in your experience to which it will point to. So I can say elemental mind, but you will never see elemental mind. It is above the physical plane. So it takes a little bit of occult practice to even understand what this book is saying, or what any book on magic or occultism is saying. So you can talk to the elemental minds. You can work with them. You can ask them to work for you, and so on. You must have heard all the stories. And the elementals are pictured in very fancy ways, always there is a personification of all these things, and then the people think that they are magical beings, but like this book is telling you that they are just memories. They are very, very primitive minds. They know a few things, that's all. So there are certain rules according to which that elemental mind acts. That is what we call as rules of the physics. So anyway, there is some kind of non-physical memory, which you can picture it as elemental minds. So if you think that it is going nowhere, it is airy-fairy now, so yes, this is the occult sciences. Without experience, they look like total mumbo jumbo. So if you are interested, you can listen. Otherwise, it's not really necessary. The plane of elemental mind, A, comprises the state or condition and degree of mental and vital development of a class of entities unknown to the average man, but recognized to occultists. They are invisible to the ordinary senses of man, but nevertheless exist and play their part of the drama of the universe. Their degree of intelligence is between that of the mineral and chemical entities on the one hand, and of the entities of the plant kingdom on the other. And there are 7 subdivisions to this plane also. And the plane of plant mind, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises the states or conditions of the entities comprising the kingdoms of the plant world, the vital and mental phenomena of which is fairly well understood by the average intelligent person, Many new and interesting scientific works regarding the mind and life in plants having been published during the last decade. Plants have life, mind, and souls, as well as have the animals, man and superman. The plane of elemental mind B, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises the states and conditions of a higher form of elemental or unseen entities, playing their part in the general work of the universe, the mind and life of which form a part of the scale between the plane of plant mind and the plane of animal mind, and the entities partaking of the nature of both. The plane of animal mind, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises the states and conditions of the entities, beings or souls, animating the animal forms of life, familiar to us all. It is not necessary to go into details regarding this kingdom or plane of life, for the animal world is as familiar to us as our own. And the plane of elemental mind C, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises those entities or beings invisible, as are all such elemental forms, which partake of the nature of both animal and human life in a degree and in certain combinations. The highest forms are semi-human in intelligence. The plane of human mind, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises those manifestations of life and mentality which are common to man in his various grades, degrees, and divisions. In this connection, we wish to point out the fact that the average mind of today occupies but the 4th subdivision of the plane of human mind, and only the most intelligent have crossed the borders of the 5th subdivision. It has taken the race millions of years to reach this stage, and it will take many more years for the race to move on to the 6th and 7th subdivisions and beyond. But remember that there have been races before us which have passed through these degrees and then on to higher planes. Our own race is the 5th, with struggles from the 4th, which has set foot upon the path. And then there are a few advanced souls of our own race who have outstripped the masses and who have passed on to the 6th and 7th subdivision, and some few beings still further on. The man of the 6th subdivision will be the superman. He of the 7th will be the overman. Now, before we continue, my comment here is, you can see the introduction to evolution of the mind here. So each plane corresponds to a mind, where that mind lives. A plane is nothing but the experience of that particular mind, actually. So we are living at one kind of plane right now, right here. So we are in one kind of mental plane, and that's why those who are well advanced will say, don't worry about the practices, you are already projecting, you are already experiencing one of the planes, and just have this intention of progressing, and you will progress very quickly into higher planes. This is the famous evolution of the mind, which is the goal of a human life in India. What do we want to do here? We do not want to get stuck in the human life forever. We want to move on. We want to progress. We want to be liberated from the human life, from the human body, from the births in this lok, in this mrityu lok, which is another name for the world of death. Because it is so low plane, the plane is so low that the bodies are not sustained. They are born and then they die. It is not fine enough. There is a high amount of entropy and disorder here. So that's why we want to progress, which equals to suffering, isn't it? So we want to progress, and that has been given as a goal of the human life. And the whole culture is geared toward evolution. The whole Indian subcontinent culture is geared towards this evolution. I think there are such big cultures everywhere on the planet, but this one is, has taken it to the limit. So everything we do, including the birth rituals, including the admission into schools, and going to a guru, taking the initiation, even marriages, and how the person lives, wakes up, wherever he goes, to the temple or to the work, and in every second of the life of that person, even after death, the body is cremated in a specific way so that he does not return back. It is this kind of intense longing to progress is found in this country. That is amazing. Just being born here is a ticket to the higher plane. You cannot escape it. So it is now woven into the culture. Now, unfortunately, some of it got corrupted. Some of it became simply mindless rituals. So anyway, those who are on the path of on a spiritual path, sooner or later, you will recognize what these rituals, what these practices, why such kind of lifestyle is here, why vegetarian diet, why doing the mantra jap, or doing the yoga practices, or doing the awareness practices, and people are not really interested in material sciences or so on. I mean, they did not develop it so much, and totally interested in the evolution of the mind, because they knew that if you make this place very, very comfortable to live, then you will remain stuck here. You will become hedonistic. You will become a slave of material pleasures. That is what has happened finally. So everybody wants to live here forever and do the same thing that they do daily, whatever that is, eating, sleeping, and watching TV, because they do not know anything more than that. So anyway, I'm going into some other subject now. So I'll keep reading. So this book is hinting to the evolution of that is happening through these planes. So there are planes beyond. There are probably many more planes beyond human plane. We are kind of at the bottom planes right now. So it is highly recommended to experiment. Check it for yourself, because these things cannot be believed. They are too magical to be believed blindly. An intelligent person will not believe it simply by reading, or you will need to experiment. And that's what I did actually. I keep doing it. So let us go forward. In our consideration of the 7 minor mental planes, we have merely referred to the 3 elementary planes in a general way. We do not wish to go into this subject in detail in this work, for it does not belong to this part of the general philosophy and teachings. But we may say this much, in order to give you a little clearer idea of the relations of these planes to the more familiar ones. The elementary planes bear the same relation to the planes of mineral, plant, animal, and human mentality and life, and that the black keys on the piano do to the white keys. The white keys are sufficient to produce music, but there are certain scales, melodies, and harmonies in which the black keys play their part, and in which their presence is necessary. They are also necessary as connecting links of soul condition, entity states, etc. Between the several other planes, certain forms of development being attained therein, this last fact giving to the reader who can read between the lines a new light upon the processes of evolution, and a new key to the secret door of the leaps of life between kingdom and kingdom. The great kingdoms of elementals are fully recognized by all occultists, and the esoteric writings are full of mention of them. The readers of Bulwer's Zanoni and similar tales recognize the entities inhabiting these planes of life. Passing on from the great mental plane to the great spiritual plane, what shall we say? How can we explain these higher states of being, life and mind, to minds as yet unable to grasp and understand the higher subdivisions of the planes of human mind? The task is impossible. We can speak only in the most general terms. How may light be described to a man born blind? How sugar to a man who has never tasted anything sweet? How harmony to one born deaf? All that we can say is that the 7 minor planes of the great spiritual plane, each minor plane having its 7 subdivisions, comprise beings possessing life, mind and form as far above that of man of today as the later is above the earthworm, mineral, or even certain forms of energy or matter. The life of these beings are so far transcends ours that we cannot even think of, and details of the same. Their minds so far transcend ours that to them we scarcely seem to think, and our mental processes seem almost akin to material processes. The matter of which their forms are composed of is of the highest planes of matter. Nay, some are even said to be clothed in pure energy. What may be said of such beings? So my comment here is that some people have found out that there are very advanced beings, and the Indian name for these are Devas, D-E-V-A, which means the light being, the being of light. And there are so many, actually, they found out so many that across the planet there are so many, gods. They are called gods for obvious reasons, because so high, so powerful, and beyond comprehension. That's what you can call them. So many are from the human lineage. That means the humans that came before us, they evolved into the light beings, and they sometimes will help you, sometimes become your guides when you intend to reach the higher planes. They will extend their help. That is how we know that there are such things. Otherwise, there was no hope of finding it out. So how do you know that? How can we know that? And for that you will need to be on a proper occult path. The whole occultism is about invoking the gods, about invoking the higher entities. So there are so many, actually, that there is a good amount of choice there. And the word God does not do any justice, or the word Devas is so broad, it is like saying animals. Now, how many kinds of animals are there? Can you imagine? Millions of them. And each has its own personality, kind of thing, isn't it? Now try to invoke a Deva in your room, in your puja room, or your occult altar, whatever you call it, and imagine nothing happening, because that's what is going to happen. Nothing will happen. You have no idea what to do. And that's why people fail in the occult practices. They don't know whom to call. They don't know their passwords. And they don't know the proper invocation. And it is all lost. So my advice is, if you are interested, you become the apprentice. You become a disciple of an occult practitioner. Try to get a glimpse of this thing if you are interested. Otherwise, something like this can happen by chance to some people. Let us say the people who die and then come back because of the advances in the medical science. More and more people are getting revived. That was not possible in the ancient times, but nowadays there's so many stories of people getting revived, and then they flatline and they come back and they will tell you of light beings, and they saw the light, because our minds are so primitive. When we encounter such thing, we think we encountered gods or angels or something like this, and they appear in many forms. So everybody says their own story. So people think that, rational people think that the mind has made up a story. traumatic experience, and to hide it, the mind has dreamed up some story. So the world of near-death experiences is very interesting. That is how we know. Actually, that is how a common person can know that there are higher planes. Otherwise, there was no hope. Actually, experimentation. Let us go forward. On the 7 minor planes of the great spiritual plane exist beings of whom we may speak as angels, archangels, demigods. On the lower minor planes dwell those great souls whom we call masters and adepts. Above them come the great hierarchies of angelic posts, unthinkable to man. And above those come those who may, without irreverence, be called the gods. So high in the scale of being are they, their being, intelligence and power being akin to those attributed by the races of men to their conceptions of deity. These beings are beyond even the highest flights of human imagination, the word divine being the only one applicable to them. Many of these beings, as well as the angelic host, take the greatest interest in the affairs of the universe and play an important part in their affairs. These unseen divinities and angelic helpers extend their influence freely and powerfully in the process of evolution and cosmic progress. Their occasional intervention and assistance in human affairs have led to the many legends, beliefs, religions and traditions of the race, past and present. They have superimposed their knowledge and power upon the world again and again, all under the law of the all, of course. But yet even the highest of these advanced beings exist merely as creation of and in the mind of the all, and are subject to the cosmic processes and universal laws. They are still mortal. We may call them gods if you like, but still they are but the elder brethren of the race, the advanced souls who have outstripped their brethren and who have foregone the ecstasy of the absorption by the all, in order to help the race on its upward journey along the path. But they belong to the universe and are subject to its conditions. They are mortal, and their plane is below that of absolute spirit. So my comment here is that when you pray, these entities are the ones that are responding, not the all. And they have so much power that they can create the universes and so on. You see, it's not a big deal. And their minds are universes themselves. So we are in one such mind right now. And they are group minds. There's no individual there. And the book is talking about they forego the absorption by the all, just to help people, just to help the minds that are below them. And here we find the concept of a bodhisattva, which is in Buddhism, also in Vedic philosophies of the rishis. They hold back their absorption, dissolution, just so that they can, for a few million trillion years, they can help people progress, evolve, because they feel a kind of duty or love for the less advanced. So if you wish, you can. It is now a personal thing. Many people do not like to pray and do not like to obviously pray to that which they cannot see. So it is, experiment. Try what happens when you ask for evolution. Strange things will happen. So don't worry. They are just looking for people who want to progress, who want to evolve faster. They are looking, they are hunting. So all you need to say is, yes, I want to progress faster. As soon as you say, no, I'm happy here, then you will never know about any such thing. You will never even see such books also. You will never even think about any kind of spiritual path. Or if you encounter such things, you will totally dismiss it. It won't enter your mind even 1 millimeter inside. So there are people like this. So opening up is the key. If you open up, it is like a experiment. You do not open up because you have total faith in such things. It is impossible to have total faith because it's such a far-fetched thing. So you open up for the experimentation and check what happens. This is called the living faith. You experiment, find out, experiment more, find out. This is the spiritual science. So all the occult, all prayers, all the religions are about pleasing these higher entities. You see, it boils down to this knowledge. So there are many ways, many traditions. Pick any and experiment. Only the most advanced hermetists are able to grasp the inner teachings regarding the state of existence and the powers manifested on the spiritual planes. The phenomena is so much higher than that of the mental planes that a confusion of ideas would surely result from an attempt to describe the same. Only those whose minds have been carefully trained along the lines of the Hermetic philosophy for years, those who have brought with them from other incarnations the knowledge acquired previously, can comprehend just what is meant by the teaching regarding these spiritual planes. And much of these inner teachings is held by the Hermetists as being too sacred, important, and even dangerous for general public dissemination. The intelligent student may recognize that what we mean by this when we state that the meaning of spirit as used by the Hermetists is akin to living power, animated force, inner essence of life, etc., which meaning must not be confounded with that usually and commonly employed in connection with the term that is religious, spiritual, ethereal, holy, etc., etc. To occultists, the word spirit is used in the sense of the animating principle, carrying with it and the idea of power, living energy, mystic force, etc. And occultists know that which is known to them as spiritual power may be employed for evil as well as good ends in accordance with the principle of polarity, a fact which has been recognized by the majority of religions in their conceptions of Satan, Beelzebub, the devil, Lucifer, fallen angels, etc. And so the knowledge regarding these planes has been kept in the holy of holies in all esoteric fraternities and occult orders, in the secret chamber of the temple. But this may be said here, that those who have attained high spiritual powers and have misused them have a terrible fate in store for them, and the swing of the pendulum of rhythm will inevitably swing them back to the furthest extreme of material existence, from which point they must retrace their steps spiritward along the weary rounds of the path, but always with the added torture of having always with them a lingering memory of the heights from which they fell owing to their evil actions. The legends of the fallen angels have a basis in actual facts. As all advanced occultists know, the striving for selfish power on the spiritual planes inevitably results in the selfish soul losing its spiritual balance and falling back as far as it had previously risen. But to even such a soul, the opportunity of a return is given, and such souls make the return journey, paying the terrible penalty according to the invariable law. So my comment here is, a short comment is, every culture recognizes the gods, and every culture recognizes the fallen gods. That means, for some reason, some of these minds, they decide to misuse whatever they have gained, whatever spiritual powers they have gained. They have advanced so far that they become extremely powerful, and somehow the mental tendencies of the lower planes are still active, did not totally diminish in them. So they tend to use that power for in the lower planes, and obviously this is kind of upsets the whole balance And when you upset the balance, there are consequences. And we have, such entities here in India also, and they are grouped under the category of Asur, A-S-U-R. The Sur are the gods, the good people, and the Asurs are the bad guys. They are extremely powerful. You can call them demons if you want. And they are depicted like ugly with teeth and horns and whatnot, But no, they are extremely advanced. And I keep saying this. Why? Why do I keep saying this? Because you may encounter a demon and he will look like a god to you. It's possible. Extremely beautiful, extremely powerful, extremely knowledgeable, because 1,000 times higher than you. We are just, humans. We don't know the difference between Sur and Asur actually. So that's why they are depicted like that. You will know, probably you will never know actually, but sometimes you may know. If you are advanced enough, you may encounter one of the demon, and you may know only through their actions. There will be petty actions for that kind of post or that kind of evolution. So we have great stories like Ravan and all, how powerful they were, how prosperous, how great they were, how much knowledge they had, well advanced, how beautiful and charismatic these demons were. And then what they did was inhuman and not good. So you know people not actually by the plane of vibration, but by their minds, what they think, what they do, by their actions. So sometimes they don't want to even conceal their intentions, their actions. They will tell you, I'll do such and such things for you. I'll give you 1,000 years of life, which is kind of child's play for them. But they will ask you to do something which is really not in the best interest of everybody. And that is where the saying comes, to sign a pact with the devil and so on, So they will want to control you. They will want to recruit you in their group. So that is how we sell the soul to the demons. So these things, it is possible to do it. So these stories have some kind of real experiences behind them. But for an ordinary man, does not really matter. They are not going to encounter anything, And even for advanced student, human plane, it's very rare to see the demons and all, and gods and all. Very, very rare. All you will see is the planes that are just higher than ours. That's all the mind will understand. Mind won't understand anything higher than that actually. So astral and a little bit more, the plane of the ancestors, where we go when we die and so on, our reach is very, very little. But sometimes extraordinary things happen, you see. The all is a mind, and so there are really no laws there. Even though we say that there are laws, the higher entities can break all those laws if they want to. So it is again sometimes extraordinary things happen. And that is how we know all these things. We know all these things because people brought it down here on this plane. Some people, they rose so high and then they brought it down here. And that is what we try to preserve. That is what we try to practice and teach. That is what the whole spirituality, in the broad sense, is about. In refined way, it is simply, rising in the planes, and then you know everything as you rise. There is no need to even read or even learn through practices. It is already happening. Let's go forward. In conclusion, we would again remind you that according to the principle of correspondence, which embodies the truth, as above, so below, as below, so above, all of the 7 hermetic principles are in full operation on all of the many planes, physical, mental and spiritual. The principle of mental substance, of course, applies to all the planes, for all are held in the mind of the all. The principle of correspondence manifests in all, for there is a correspondence, harmony and agreement between the several planes. The principle of vibration manifests on all planes. In fact, the very differences that go to make the planes arise from vibration, as we have explained. And the principle of polarity may manifest on each plane, the extremes of the poles being apparently opposite and contradictory. The principle of rhythm manifests on each plane, and the movement of the phenomena having its ebb and flow, rise and flow, incoming and outgoing. The principle of cause and effect manifests on each plane, every effect having its cause and every cause having its effect. The principle of gender manifests on each plane, the creative energy being always manifest and operating along the lines of its masculine and feminine aspects, as above, so below, and as below, so above. This centuries old Hermetic axioms embodies one of the great principles of universal phenomena. As we proceed with our consideration of the remaining principles, we will see even more clearly the truth of the universal nature of this great principle of correspondence. This is the end of the chapter. Probably a very interesting chapter, because a foundation of the occult practices, you can find it here. I found that my little bit of research that I have done, that the occult practices are universal. This material age where people think there is no magic is like a flash in the pan. If you take the history of civilization to be about 25,000 years, the idea that there are no planes, there is not a mind, it is totally purely physical, has lived for hardly 100 years. That also not completely. So it happened because of very rapid rise in technology, material technology. And as quickly as it arose, it is going to go away. And the technology of the mind will again rise. Because that is the only real thing there is. How much can you hide from it? So I suggest that take a look at the bigger picture, how the humanity was. Take a look at the real history. Not the history written by invaders, attackers, so on. And the real history of human nature is human minds, human knowledge. Then you will know the dominating philosophies that we had. They have these common things, common theme everywhere on the planet. And they were much closer to other planes of manifestation, even the lower ones, even the elemental planes. And probably in the current time, we are farthest away from the mental planes. We are so isolated and we have totally forgotten. This is some kind of dark age or something. So this is the adventure of different kind, if you want. It is probably million times better than doing the physical kind of adventures. So adventures through the planes of the mind. So I find it very, very fascinating. I find it really worthy of effort. You should give it a chance. And you will learn a lot, even though the book says that humans are tiny, whiny, but we are advanced enough to understand this. That is our power. So even if you understand a little, it does not matter, because the progress is going to be exponential from here onwards. Before humans, there is no possibility actually. Only some higher animals have this possibility of even getting a glimpse of any higher plane or lower plane or whatever. So for the first time, this has become available to us, this chance. And every good student in the spiritual science should experiment a little bit.
Pure experiences.
You were listening to Pure Experiences by Tharun Pradhan.